So first of all, very good afternoon to all the members. As you know, today is Basant Panchami. So on this occasion, auspicious occasion of Basant Panchami, I pray to Goddess Saraswati to bless all of us with lots of knowledge, and hunger for it never ends for us. I take this opportunity to welcome Sri Ravi Kumarji Somani sir. He's from Pune. He exclusively practices in GST, a very humble personality and knowledgeable person. Thanks to him for accepting our invitation and taking out time for him from his busy schedule. We thought that we couldn't have a better person to guide us on today's topic. So with this, I hand over further proceeding to our Chairman Sri Rajendra Shete sir of Nashik branch to take it forward. Sir.
Thank you, Jitendra ji. Good evening and welcome on the second session on Union Budget. Today we are going to discuss on indirect taxes, and we have with us Ravi Kumar sir, who will guide us on the amendments in this budget on indirect taxes. It is my immense pleasure to introduce Ravi Kumar sir. Sir is qualified as a chartered accountant and he is pursuing LLB. He is an extremely passionate on indirect tax professional with experience in performing health check review, providing advisory and litigation support in the matters concerning indirect taxes. He has given the lecture at various trade and professional forums such as ICAI, CII, National Assurance Academy, etc. He has authored the 2 books on indirect taxes, Practical Guide on GST Audit and Certification. Recently, 4th edition of this book was released. That is really a great achievement. And his second book is Self-Study Guide to Indirect Taxes. He has written the various analytical and issue-based articles, research paper, and legal updates on indirect tax matters, which are published in various newsletters and online platforms. He loved doing the extensive research on subject and loving and solving the critical indirect tax problems. His mission is to spread indirect tax knowledge and solve the indirect tax problems. So with this brief introduction, I request Ravi sir to take the charge and start the session. Over to you, Ravi sir.
Thank you very much, Rajendra ji, for the introduction. Thanks a lot to Jitendra for coordinating the entire session and making sure the smooth proceedings of this session, and special thanks to Piyush ji for joining the session. We happen to meet only during seminars and webinars, so nice. Okay, I hope I am properly audible.
Yes, sir.
No problem. Just recovered from COVID. So, I would try to keep it not very loud because, my throat may not allow me. I kept hot water next to me so that, I take it regularly in this session. This is my first session post recovering from COVID. So just bear with me for that. And thank you to all for, this particular thing. Today's topic is on changes in indirect taxes, Union Budget FY 2022. I don't know whether, changes in indirect taxes, unlike direct taxes where that, session would be once in a year and we get to know about all the changes. In indirect taxes, this session can be conducted six times in a year, on the same topic. So that is how the number of changes that are taking place in indirect taxes, and it's becoming very difficult for businesses, professionals to understand this change. Most importantly, look at what is the implication of this change and what is the suggestion that is required to be given to the clients. That is where the biggest challenge is coming from professionals' point of view as far as indirect taxation is concerned, because we say that there are so many changes in indirect taxes. But let me tell you, if there is a change, there is a need for professionals, correct? So I think rather than blaming so many changes, we should embrace this thing and be on our toes to update ourselves with these changes and be ready to give the best of the professional services to our clients, giving the best of the advices to them on what is that they need to do on this change. Okay? So today we are a small gathering, I would say about around 40-50 of us. So we'll make it interactive. You have any question, any discussion, anything required, just put it on the chat box. I'll also keep the chat box open with me so that I can see the questions, and I'll try to answer the questions then and there if there is something. Or you can also unmute and ask me the question so that it can benefit everyone. Of course, I'll also give time in the end for this separate Q&A, what we will also keep it. So now, without taking any further time, let me dive into this today's topic of our discussion. So we'll be looking at overview budget. What are the changes in GST, changes in customs and central excise? I'll give very small amount of time for customs and central excise because I think majority of us wants to know what is the changes in GST and implications of that. So I would like to give a larger amount of time for the GST part of our today's discussion. Okay. Now, if I look at this various changes, broad overview or broad approach, what has been followed in this budget. First and foremost, when the budget speech was going on, I'm not sure how many of you have actually seen the budget speech. Most of you must have seen. But then, from GST point of view, there was hardly anything much to talk about by the finance minister in budget speech per se. But she made a remark that there is a tremendous revenue collection of around 140,000 crores for the month of January, and there was a huge round of applause in the entire house, as if our economy is growing, or in a different words, currently it is being seen that the GST collections, growth in GST collection is a reflection of the growth in economy, is a reflection of businesses coming back and recovering the COVID. In fact, that is being considered as a benchmark nowadays. 140,000 crore, again, they may target 2 lakh crore. I would suggest you remove entire concept of ITC, it will become 5 lakh crore. Why do you want to give ITC to the businesses? If you really see this trend of why the collections under GST are increasing phenomenally, I will tell you 20% to 30% of this increase in collection is only because of the measures and curtailment and the way in which the law is being misused from the ITC point of view. That is contributing. Your excess 30,000 or 40,000 crore is coming from there. And if you really see, right from October 2019, when they started this Rule 36.4, that is where the real flip in the revenue collections have started in GST. Because before that, hardly we crossed 1 lakh crore except for a few months. And it was more of 90,000, 94,000 crores where the revenue collections were there. So in my view, GST collection is not a true reflection of growth. These collections are because of various unnecessary measures that are brought out in this particular budget and last 2 years. So there seems to be a lot of collection pressure on the government, which is again giving a wrong indication to the taxpayers. Draconian law, if I can use the word draconian, we will understand in today's discussion why I am saying this as a draconian. The way in which the amendments are being carried out. Very unfortunate. In fact, today my partner has also posted this on LinkedIn, Mr. Hiregange, that too much power is being given to executives. Too much power. It's beyond excessive delegation, if I can say. Once too much power is given to the delegatives, then this is what is going to happen. I was only wondering that, I used to still think that once GST law comes, everything is going to simplify. Fir kya rahega? Professionals ke liye kya rehne wala hai? But then after seeing the law, what it has happened in last 5 years, I am clear that we don't need new law. We need change in the people making the law, not the law. Way forward, what is being seen is that electricity, petrol, diesel, stamp duty could possibly be subsumed in GST. But then, states does not want to leave control and give to center. And that is a problem between center and state. Why electricity, petrol, diesel, stamp duty are not getting subsumed in GST. There are three big sectors that are outside GST. In my view, government need to seriously think to bring those sectors in GST, because they are all commercial sectors and minting money, unfortunately not paying GST. Health is one of them. Education is another big sector. Entire funding of political stuff, I think it's under that sector only. And third is the food products. Again, very big sector, which is outside GST. That itself can fill up a big collection, but unfortunately, because of various political reasons, these sectors are outside GST. One fundamental problem is non-creation of GST tribunals. We were still waiting that in this budget, at least they would do something about it. But it's like government is very clear that they do not want to bend down on the tribunal side. For example, you all must be knowing that currently this entire mechanism of having a tribunal is pending before the Supreme Court, because government wants to bring a tribunal that doesn't have a spine. What they want is that in the tribunal, there must be one judicial member and one executive member. I'm sorry, two executive members, which means that the tribunal will also become like your advanced ruling authority. Rightly, this has been challenged by the Madras Tax Bar Association. Favorable ruling has come from the Madras High Court. Matter is pending before the Supreme Court. I hope that the tribunal is saved by the Supreme Court. So that is where it is pending. But unfortunately, because of lack of tribunal, even after 5 years of implementation of GST, we are seeing so many writ petitions being filed in the High Court. These are the broad changes. If I can, summarize them. I'll not go into each one of it as of now. We'll directly understand these changes as we go through the slides. So see, if you see, this is how the collections are getting increased day by day in GST. I'm of a strong opinion that this increase is not a true reflection of actual growth. Fundamentally, one big change that is happening in GST, and every time there's a budget, they want to somehow tinker with ITC. I don't know what is the problem they have with ITC. ITC is eventually a right. It is a right because it is an indirect tax. We need to understand. What is the principle of indirect tax? What is the principle of value-added tax? It is a value-added tax. It means you tax only on the value addition. Unfortunately, government is seeing ITC as a wonderful tool to curtail to increase the tax base. And this has been seen that time and again, they have tried to tinker with it. And then the courts have held it against the department. And again, they try to change the verdict of the courts. And this is the story that is happening since last 5 years. If this is a broad summary of what has happened. When we started, it was supposed to be a two-way matching concept. It was supposed to be, there will be GSTR 1, GSTR 2, GSTR 3. He will apply, he will match, he will do that. It will show on his portal, and all those things was told to us. Nothing happened finally on the ground. Then they realized, okay, this is not working. So let's do one-way matching. And this GSTR 2A suddenly came out of nowhere in September 2018 without even a rule being in place. And that was brought for the first time by way of rules in October 2019. GSTR 2A was brought by way of rules in October 2019. Before that, show me GST Act, show me GST rules, where it was written about GSTR 2A before October 2019. Very unfortunate that in the Maharashtra GST department and the central authorities are issuing show-cause notices, scrutinies, assessments, and demanding the assessees to make the payment of taxes on account of mismatch even for financial year 17, 18 and 18, 19, including 19, 20 first half. If you ask me, don't pay. Even if it is not there in 2.8, don't pay, because there was no law. There was no law in that regard. Post October 2019, there was a rule. Very unfortunate that the rule comes nowadays before the act. And then they decide to bring act to give power to make that rule. There are at least 3 to 4 amendments like this. You will laugh at it, that first they bring the rule and then they bring a provision in the act to give the backing to the rule. This is what has happened. So we know it is a settled jurisprudence that a rule cannot be implemented without an authority in the act. This is a fundamental. Nobody needs to teach us. Chartered accountants need not be taught about this fundamental principle. But this is how GST is implemented, Rule 2A, right from October 2019 till January 2022. There was no provision in the Act, effective provision in the Act, implementing or giving authority to have this matching concept. Whatever was there, Section 38, Section 39, 42, 43 was everything in abeyance. Section 43A, new returns, everything is in abeyance. Nothing was effective. But still, even after October 2019 till December 2021, if you ask me whether matching is required as per the law, answer is no. Absolute no. I have prepared one very detailed note on how to handle the show cause notices relating to match mismatch. In fact, that is available in the public domain. It's a 20 pages detailed note, which I'll also share it with the chairman, sir, and the committee team, which can be shared with the members. Why there are legalities, illegalities, which also we will discuss in today's discussion. See, today's session, I would like to focus more on ITC because that is the crux and that is where the amendments have also taken place in this budget. And I would like to go through a bit of history so that you will be able to connect what I'm saying. Then there are certain amendments in the budget which are procedural related, which also I will cover, but I will not stress upon that too much. I would focus on the important amendments more. I hope it is fine with the members. Then Rule 86A and Rule 86B was introduced. Blocking of electronic credit ledger. No provision in the Act. Let me tell you, no provision in the Act. The provision in the Act is brought in this budget to actually legalize 86A and 86B. 86A and 86B is being legalized in this budget. Introduction of GSTR 2B was there in January 21. That was made effective in January 22. Now, from January 2022, there is a section 16 to AA, which is for the first time there is a provision in the Act which is in place and effective, giving authority and power for this matching concept. Now, before going to the changes in budget, I would like to focus on this 16 to AA that is made effective from 1st January 2022. What is the implication of this? What is the legality of this? What is the legality of GSTR 2B after 1st January 2022? Because now it is there in the Act. Is it like, yes, up to matching karna hi hai, there is no other option? Or what are the challenges? What are the issues? Let me talk about 20 minutes. I will talk on this and then I will connect this discussion with the changes in the budget. So this is what is section 16, subsection 2, subclause AA. Now let me tell you, this was brought in the previous budget and this has been made effective from 1st of January 2022. This is the reality. Whatever change that happens in a budget, it takes almost 1 year for that change to become effective, because in GST, all the states have to pass these changes in their legislative assemblies. And then after that, only the government can notify these changes. So whatever changes that we will be discussing today in the budget, let me tell you, its effectiveness would come, I think somewhere from September, October of 2022, we will see its effectiveness. But it is important for us to tell our clients today about these changes so that a proper preparatory work can happen. Section 16, subsection 2, clause AA is been introduced. Then there was section 37, subsection 1, and there is a rule 67. These are the three things that we need to connect to understand the concept of matching, what was brought from 1st January 2022. Now it says the details of the invoice or debit note referred to in clause A has been furnished by the supplier in the statement of outward supplies. Statement of outward supplies is Gstr 1. And such details have been communicated to the recipient of such invoice or debit note in the manner specified under section 37. So what it is saying, that the details of invoices and debit note must be furnished by the supplier, and it must be furnished in Gstr 1. And these details must be communicated to the recipient, and which manner it must be communicated, in the manner under section 37. So then if it is under section 37, then we need to see what is the manner under section 37. Under section 37, directly they have not given any manner. What they have given under section 37 is that the details shall be communicated to the recipient of the said supplies within such time and such manner as may be prescribed. So again, section 37 does not talk about the manner. Section 37 again says that it is within such time and such manner as may be prescribed. Now, where it is prescribed? It is prescribed in Rule 60, Sub-Rule 7. It says an auto-drafted statement containing the details of input tax credit shall be made available to the registered person in Form Gstr 2B for every month electronically through common portal, and shall consist of whatever 1, 2, 3, 4 things. It will have the details of ITC. So the manner is been prescribed in Rule 60, Sub-Rule 7. Now, with this particular amendment, we need to analyze that there is a one interpretation coming out that now Gstr 2B is everything. We need to do entire matching as per Gstr 2B only, and nothing else from 1st of January 2022. These are the provisions of the law. Why we are saying Gstr 2, section 16 to AA, 37.1 and Rule 60, Sub-Rule 7. Now let me try to decipher these amendments, and let me try to make you understand what are these changes. And there was also consequential change made in Rule 36.4. So this is the amendment in the Rule 36.4, where if you see, categorically there is a reference of Gstr 2B in Rule 36.4, where again the same thing, whatever is mentioned in the section, is been brought out in a different language in the rule. It says that no input tax credit shall be availed by a registered person in respect of invoices or debit notes, the details of which are required to be furnished under subsection 1 of section 37, unless such details are furnished by the supplier in Gstr 1 and it is communicated to the recipient in Gstr 2B under Sub-Rule 7 of Rule 60. So basically, the communication from the supplier is under section 37, and the communication to the recipient is from the Rule 60, Sub-Rule 7. Now, first and fundamental point which I would like to bring, since for the first time this provision is introduced in the Act, which is effective from 1st of January 2022, does that mean that there was no provision in the Act prior to 1st January 2022? Answer is yes. If there was already a provision in the Act prior to 1st January 2022, then why there was a need of this amendment? So one thing is very clear, that July 2017 to December 2021, there is no concept of matching provided in the CGST Act or SGST Act or IGST Act. Whatever matching concept that they provided, they could never introduce it because of the system limitations. We all are aware about it, which means that the validity of Rule 36.4 prior to this amendment, prior to 1st January 2022, and the validity of Rule 36.4 prior to 1st January 2022 is clearly under question. In my view, it is illegal and incorrect. Correct? This is for the past. Next comes is the validity of Rule 36.4. Now, post amendment, there is one amendment that is brought in this budget, that is budget 2022, wherein under section 37, if you see this section, the language is details shall be communicated to the recipient of the said supplies within such time and in such manner. It only says such time and such manner. It doesn't say anything more. In this budget, they have added 2 more words over there with such conditions and restrictions. Now, let me tell you, this term conditions and restrictions is added now in the budget 2022, which means the manner specified under section 37 did not had any authority to put any conditions or restrictions to the input tax credit. It can only say the manner in which you can take the credit and the time at which you can take the credit. It cannot, section 37 cannot bring additional conditions and restrictions to the credit. And section 16(2)AA refers to section 37. Now, this authority of putting conditions and restrictions to the credit is brought only in budget 2022, which means that section 37(1) did not have the power to incorporate conditions and restrictions to the credit that has been taken through 2B prior to the amendment of budget 2022, which in a summary means that the real effectiveness of section 16(2)AA would come only after the changes made in this budget are introduced, which means maybe sometime in January 2023, we can say that there is a power to put conditions and restrictions which is there in section 37(1), which is not there till now. This is first point. Second point, section 16(2)AA read with section 37 clearly runs contrary to the other provisions of the Act. Now, if I see the Act as it was prior to this budget, there was a concept of recipient also uploading the details. Recipient also submitting the details of the invoices, which must be accepted by the supplier. Missing invoices can be uploaded. There was an opportunity given for the genuine recipient to also upload the details, which is there in the Act. Let me tell you, it is there in the Act, section 38. Now, how do you harmoniously interpret, especially when it is there in the Act? You have kept one portion of the Act in abeyance and implemented another portion of the Act. It is like, you have cut one leg of a person and asking him to walk on one leg and try to achieve the goal. That is how it has been done. So it clearly runs contrary to section 38, which gives the right to the recipient to declare the missing invoices. By putting that in abeyance, because of the system restrictions, the law cannot take away the right which is there in the Act. It is your authority, it is department's onus to put the system in place. This has been held by Arise India in the Delhi High Court in respect of the past VAT regime. Now, I would like to now make one very interesting observation. If you really see this amendment of 16(2)AA, it says details of invoice or debit note. It only says details of invoice or debit note, which means that this entire restriction is only in respect of invoice, tax invoice, and debit notes. There cannot be a restriction beyond these 2 documents. Now, my question is, what happens to the bill of entry for import of goods? Because when I import the goods, I don't take credit under the foreign parties tax invoice. I take credit under the cover of a bill of entry, which is a separate document recognized in the GST rules. Unfortunately, 16(2)AA does not implement any matching concept for the bill of entry. It implements matching concept for the tax invoice. If I can put it in a simple words, if you import the goods in India, there is no matching concept. But if you purchase same goods from domestic market, you have to go through the entire hassle of matching. Clearly defeats right to equality, clearly defeats fundamentals of Make in India, clearly defeats the fact that it has to be otherwise. The restrictions would be more on the imports rather than on the domestic. But what has been put up is the restrictions on the domestic rather than the import. In my view, this is violative of Article 14 of the Constitution of India, right to equality, and the violation is manifestly arbitrary. Let me tell you, if there is any violation of Article 14, which is manifestly arbitrary, there are multiple Supreme Court judgments. Shaira Bano is one of the landmark Supreme Court judgment on this. If a particular provision is manifestly arbitrary of Article 14, then even if it is there in the Act, it is violative of the Constitution of India and it must be struck down. Point number one. Point number two, in case of ISD, I take the credit based on ISD invoices and not based on the invoices uploaded by the supplier. There is no supplier who will upload the invoices in Gstr 1 for ISD. There is a completely different mechanism to take the credit for ISD invoices. Now, again, if I go to Rule 16.2AA, it only covers those invoices which are furnished by the supplier in the statement of outward supplies. It doesn't cover ISD credits. Third, it does not cover the credits in respect of taxes that I am paying under reverse charge. Because again, in those cases, there is nothing that is being uploaded by the supplier in Gstr 1. The credit is being taken based on the self-invoice being generated by the recipient. So even reverse charge related credits are not governed by the matching concept. And fourth, and the most important thing is that the entire gamut of coverage only covers tax invoice and debit notes. It doesn't cover credit notes, which means when it comes to taking the credit, I need to do the matching and mismatch. But when it comes to reversing the credit, I need to adopt my books of accounts. Practically, how it is possible? Because 16.2AA does not put any restriction relating to credit notes as far as a matching is concerned. This is what I was talking about, Shaira Bano Supreme Court judgment. And there is another judgment I have quoted where, right to equality has been questioned and the Article 14 of the Constitution of India is being considered for why the match-mismatch aspect, which I have just talked about, is arbitrary and clearly violates right to equality. Some other legal issues in this entire concept. There is a provision which says that the tax must be paid to the government by the supplier. Okay, tax must be paid to the government by the supplier, accepted. But how do a recipient would come to know that whether the supplier has made the payment of tax to the government? Recipient को कैसे पता चलेगा कि supplier ने government को tax pay किया है? In a two-way matching concept, this was possible. But in a one-way matching concept, in the concept of GSTR 2A, GSTR 2B, it is impossible. No, I will give you the details of filing of GSTR 3B. But still, how do I come to know whether my invoice is included in the GSTR 3B filed by the vendor? How do I come to know if the vendor has later made the payment of taxes by way of a departmental scrutiny, departmental audit, DRC 03, annual return? So government is not giving the details of vendors' payment of tax to the supplier. Now, what is happening practically? Because supplier has not made the payment of tax, government is asking the recipient to reverse the input tax credit. The innocent recipient has reversed the input tax credit because it is not reflecting in GSTR 2B. Now, the smart government, do you think that they are not going to collect this money from the supplier? Government has entire machinery with them. They are going to impose recovery provisions. They are going to impose investigation, scrutiny, search, seizure, and all sorts of muscle power. And they are going to collect this money from the supplier. But unfortunately, when they will collect this money from the supplier, your time limit to take the credit by the recipient is already over. And that details, there is no mechanism for the supplier to upload in GSTR1 because the time limit to rectify GSTR1 is also over. In a process, on a 100 rupees transaction, government is collecting 18 rupees from the recipient by denying the input tax credit. Government is also collecting 18 rupees from the supplier by later collecting the taxes. On top of it, government is going to charge interest and penalties to the supplier on that transaction. So 36 rupees of tax is what government is collecting on a 100 rupees transactions. And then if I add interest and penalties, the tax amount would go up to 60 rupees on a 100 rupees transaction. And this is the reason why the revenue collections in GST are crossing 1,40,000 crores. It is a clear case of unjust profiteering by the department. You are keeping both the parties in the blind and trying to squeeze money in the form of taxes from both. Clearly goes against Article 265 of the Constitution of India, where the tax can actually be collected only under the authority of law. Very unfortunate. I was actually a very big critic of Maharashtra VAT. I used to think, what is this nonsense matching concept? Every time there is a VAT assessment, taxpayer end up paying 20 lakhs, 40 lakhs, 50 lakhs because the supplier is, there is a mismatch in C forms and all these things. But then after seeing GST, I thought Maharashtra VAT was much better. Because ठीक है, supplier ने नहीं डाला, details GSTR 2B में नहीं है, no problem. Opportunity तो दो supplier को details डालने की, कि चलो भाई अभी नहीं डाला, लेकिन 1 साल बाद, 2 साल बाद हमको ध्यान में आया है, I will upload so that the recipient can take the credit. No, there also they don't want to give opportunity. To rectify the GST returns also there is a time limit. You cannot rectify after September of the next financial year, which means 1.5 साल में 6 महीने से 1.5 साल के बीच में आपको जो करना है कर लो, and if you miss out in that, gone. You are paying 36 rupees GST on the same transaction after that. In Maharashtra VAT, there was an opportunity. But even after 5 years at the time of assessment, if the supplier uploads, the government was giving this benefit. Now, in my view, this is a fundamental flaw. You are not giving the supplier an opportunity to rectify. Clearly goes against the very fundamentals of the Constitution. Next, very, very important thing. Practically, you are saying that the time limit is up to September of the next financial year, which is made to November in this budget. But I would like to ask one question. Let us say there is an invoice of March 2021, which is uploaded by the supplier in September 2021. Very much possible. There are so many small taxpayers who will file their GST returns of March only in September at the time of income tax filing. Now, September 2021, that fellow has uploaded his invoice, and you are saying that I cannot take the input tax credit after September, which means I have only 1 month to take the credit. I have got practically only 1 month to take the credit. Assume that if that person files the return in October instead of September, then before even I could become eligible, I become ineligible for the credit because of section 16(4) time limit. Before even I become entitled to the credit, I become ineligible because the time limit is over. When he has uploaded, the time limit was already gone. So either we need to interpret section 16(4) from the date of invoice, or I will give another formula that we need to implement section 16(4). We need to look at the time limit from the date on which it is uploaded in 2B, which means if the transaction is reflected in September 2021 in 2B, then I must be given time limit up to next September 2022. Only then I can say there is a time limit of 1. I think, Pankaj ji, you need to please keep it on mute. So this is a practical challenge, which means section 16(4) जो आप time limit दे रहे हो 6 महीने से 1.5 साल, that has become redundant. It has been reduced to 1 month. It has been reduced to a situation where there is no time limit in place. most important question which I would like to raise in this concept of matching is that when you say that the details must be furnished by the supplier, section 16 to AA kya bolta hai? Details must be furnished by the supplier. Correct, right? But if you are not giving a proper system or a mechanism for a supplier to communicate the details, to furnish the details, where is the fault of the recipient? I'll tell you the reasons where this problem will come. B2C, agar supplier ne B2C mein dal diya galti se, then there is no way that he can, the recipient can take the credit. Only if the supplier can amend within that time limit. But there are so many suppliers, you can't even go to them. You can't even go and ask them to amend. I'll give you an example. There is this DMart. DMart says that, sorry sir, hum to GST number lete nahi, hum to B2C mein dalenge. What do I do? How can I go and question DMart? And why I am being denied input tax credit? If the supplier is not furnishing the details and if there is no mechanism for a recipient to upload and take that credit. Second, if the supplier is making the payment of taxes through DRC 03 because of audit, annual return, scrutiny, investigation, search, seizure, notice, whatever, there is no mechanism for supplier to upload these details in the portal. There is no mechanism, there is no system. I am telling even after the implementation of 16 to AA, there is no mechanism to take credit in these details. Incorrect reporting by suppliers. Agar supplier ne koi details incorrectly report kar diya hai, then there is a very short time limit to rectify it, and there is no other time limit other than this to take this benefit. So in my view, the judgment by Delhi High Court Arise India is a landmark judgment. We should understand that there is a principle called lex non cogit ad impossibilia, which says that law cannot compel a man to do impossible. Fundamental principle. It violates Article 19(1)(g) of the Constitution of India, which gives a right to carry on trade and business. It violates Article 300A of the Constitution of India, which deprives assessee of its property. And let me tell you, input tax credit is a property. It's an asset. It violates Article 265 of the Constitution of India because I've mentioned that the tax is being collected beyond the authority of law. And most importantly, it violates the promise that was given in the 122nd Constitutional Amendment Bill, Statement of Objects, that there would be no cascading and there would be a seamless flow of credit. So it violates the very statement of objects with which the GST was introduced. In my view, despite introduction of 16 to AA, this particular thing is going to be challenged, and it is going to be challenged hard. And I am confident that the way in which this has been implemented, the only way is that either bring two-way matching or don't bring matching. Because if you want to bring a fractured way of matching, then it is not going to work. Then these are other practical challenges. They did not clarify on what is going to happen for the spillover transaction. अगर दिसंबर का बिल है वो जनवरी में डाला है तो 2A में देखना है या 2B में देखना है. A lot of confusion that the businesses are facing over there. On a practical side, I would say, forgetting about all these legal issues, is that to be on the safe side, if I could say that take a conservative view, one may look at taking the credit based on GSTR 2B rather than GSTR 2A with effect from 1st of January 2022. Because after 1st January 2022, 2A does not have any relevance. 2A does not have any relevance. It's 2B, whatever relevance that is there. I'll also suggest some practical tips in the further course of our discussion, what is to be done. Any questions till now? Anybody have any questions till now, whatever that we have discussed? Okay, no problem. We'll take questions in the end. Now, let me come to the budget changes in this budget. This basic introduction was important because now I'm able to connect the changes in budget. Till now, we were discussing that a GSTR 2B ka restriction jo hai, ye itself is a big problem. Now, on top of this GSTR 2B, merely having the credit in GSTR 2B is not sufficient. That is what the government is saying. GSTR 2B में भी अगर credit है, उसके बाद भी आपको credit नहीं मिलेगा if it is a restricted credit. So now, till now we were facing the problem that GSTR 2B में credit है, but books में नहीं है, तो हमको उसी से problem था. But in this budget, what they are saying that GSTR 2B में दो type के credits रहेंगे. GSTR 2B में दो type के credits रहेंगे. एक type का credit ऐसा रहेगा which is a free, which is available, कोई problem नहीं है, ये आप ले सकते हैं. And there is second type of credit in GSTR 2B which is a restricted credit. So even if it is reflected in GSTR 2B, you cannot take the credit. That is, a recipient cannot take input tax credit because it is a restricted credit in the GSTR 2B. Funny as it sounds, absolute funny. And the way they are going to put restriction, I don't know कैसे इसको implement करेंगे, कहाँ से ये ideas मिलते हैं government को. If you see BA implement किया गया है, mark my words, BA would be struck down by the courts. It will be struck down by the courts, and soon we will see in the next budget or immediate next budget that this particular provision would further will be amended because of so many challenges that they have brought out. Now, क्या बोलता है BA that the details of input tax credit in respect of the said supply communicated to such registered person under section 38 has not been restricted. यानी अगर क्रेडिट लेना है तो जो कम्युनिकेट हुई है सप्लाई आपको वो restricted नहीं होनी चाहिए, correct? Now, what is the restriction under section 38 is what is important for us to understand. So this is the section 38 which is which will be implemented from the date to be notified. Now let me come here for the restrictions. Now there are 6 restrictions that are brought in this particular thing. First restriction says that the details of supplies furnished by the supplier within specified period of taking registration. यानी supplier registration लेने के बाद में within specified period उसको details furnish करनी चाहिए. अगर नहीं करेंगे तो recipient को उसका credit नहीं मिलेगा. I think this is in respect of revised invoices, जहाँ पर registration लेने के बाद में 1 month का time होता है invoices properly revise करने का. So in that context, they may be putting some time limit for the supplier to upload the invoices within some time of registering so that the recipient can take credit. I don't know. अभी इसके rules आएंगे. The rules, once it comes, only then we'll come to know what is the time limit and what they are talking about. Next, supplier has defaulted payment of tax and where such default has continued for such period as may be prescribed. यानी अगर supplier ने टैक्स पेमेंट में डिफॉल्ट कर दिया और वो डिफॉल्ट उतने पीरियड तक कंटिन्यू होगा जितना वो पीरियड प्रेस्क्राइब करेंगे बाय वे ऑफ रूल्स, तो रिसिपिएंट को क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगा. फंडामेंटल क्वेश्चन, हाउ डू रिसिपिएंट कम टू नो वेदर सप्लायर हैज डिफॉल्टेड पेमेंट ऑफ टैक्स और नॉट? देयर इज नो मैकेनिज्म फॉर द रिसिपिएंट टू कम टू नो दैट द सप्लायर हैज डिफॉल्टेड द पेमेंट ऑफ टैक्स. नेक्स्ट, supplier's GST payable as per GSTR 1 is more than the GST paid in GSTR 3B by more than a certain limit. यानी आपके GSTR 1 और GSTR 3B में अगर डिफरेंस है, आपके सप्लायर के अगर GSTR 1 और GSTR 3B में डिफरेंस है, तो रिसिपिएंट को क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगा. Of course, difference must be beyond a particular limit. Maybe there will be a rule saying that the difference must not be more than 20% or it will not be more than 10%. But difference between GSTR 1 and 3B of the supplier, what it has to do with the recipient, the difference can be because of various reasons, fundamental being spillover transactions. There are so many taxes that are paid in the course of audit, investigation. Next two are the most funny restrictions. ITC availed by the supplier in GSTR 3B exceeds the ITC available as per this clause. Forget about a transaction between supplier and recipient. सप्लायर ने अगर आईटीसी अवेल नहीं किया एज पर दिस क्लॉज तो रिसिपिएंट को क्रेडिट डिनाई होगा. अभी आई एम नॉट एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड कि ये कैसे इंप्लीमेंट होने वाला है. यानी अगर समझ लो मेरे सप्लायर ने कुछ इनएलिजिबल आईटीसी लिया है, मेरे सप्लायर ने कुछ गलत आईटीसी लिया है, तो उसका मेरे क्रेडिट से क्या लेना देना है? व्हाट इज द कनेक्ट? Because the transaction between me and my supplier, that transaction is a genuine transaction. How and what it has to do with the transaction with the supplier, with his suppliers and that transaction's credit? how that transaction, a transaction between a supplier and his supplier, can block a credit a transaction between me and my supplier on a genuine transaction. I don't know what is the brains that have gone behind this particular point number 4. And point number 5, if supplier has discharged defaulted in the mandatory discharge of payment of tax in cash, that is 1% rule 86B, which has been introduced. Now again, this is a problem of the supplier. It has nothing to do with the transaction which I entered into with my supplier. How does it affect my input tax credit? I don't see any logic. In my view, although we say that law does not have a logic, but it must have something, fundamentally something to know why that has been there. It lacks basic common sense. I mean, I'm not able to understand कि supplier ने अगर 86B का compliance नहीं किया है, तो ये transaction जो हम दो के बीच में हो, उससे क्या लेना देना है? अच्छा, 6th they put one more point that such other class of persons as may be prescribed. उसका मतलब पूरा हमने executives को outright power दे दिया है. यानी कल के दिन दिल्ली में कमिश्नर बैठकर ये डिसाइड करेगा कि और ऐसी कौन सी चीजें हैं जिसके बदल हम आपका क्रेडिट रिस्ट्रिक्ट करेंगे. Serial number 6, in my view, is an excessive delegation of power to the executives. And we have so many judgments to talk about it. I'll not go into it as of now. With this, officially, GSTR 2 and GSTR 3 are now dead. GSTR 2 and GSTR 3 are not going to see the light of the day in the GST law, because उन्होंने ये concept of GSTR 2 निकाल दिया है, section 38 पूरा amend कर दिया है. ये पूरा matching mismatch जो concept है GSTR 1, GSTR 2, GSTR 3, two-way matching, ये डालेगा वो डालेगा, इसको भी दिख सकता है उसको भी दिख सकता है, ये सब matching concept निकाल दिया है. section 42 और section 43 has been removed. Now GST is heading towards one-way matching concept, where only one person will reverse the credit if it is not there, and government will separately collect the money from the other person, and the recipient would never come to know about it. Fractured. This is called patches way of amending the law. Amending the law in the patches, trying to fix the problem and create bigger problems. Fundamental question I would like to ask, ये जो section 38 में जो हमने 5 restrictions अभी देखे हैं, these restrictions, whether they are transaction wise or supplier wise, because जो way में restriction दिया गया है, I have not मैंने actual section 38 quote नहीं किया है, but अगर आपको time मिले तो please section 38 को actually जो legally जो word है statutory word वो पढ़ना. Every word starts with any registered person. It means ये जो restriction है ये transactions wise नहीं है, ये restriction supplier wise है. इसका मतलब अगर आपका कोई supplier ऐसा है जो ये 5 में से कोई भी restriction में अगर fall हो जाएगा, तो that supplier will be considered as a red flag supplier. Red flag कर दिया जाएगा वो supplier को. Once a supplier is red flag, all the transactions with that supplier will become a restricted credit in your GSTR 2B, and all the transactions with that supplier, you will not be able to take the input tax credit. So the restrictions that are going to come in the GSTR 2B are not going to be invoice wise or transaction wise. These are going to be supplier wise. And who is going to decide these restrictions? Software is going to decide these restrictions. Fundamentally, it is going to affect the reputation of the supplier if the software coding misjudges the restrictions. We are seeing so many notices being issued based on software matching, and we know what kind of notices they are. Now, the fundamental question that is going to come is that how a recipient is going to invoice wise understand the issue and how the recipient is going to be asked to reverse a credit even for the transactions that are genuine. Now, another question that is going to come, let us say supplier को आज आपने red flag कर दिया है, so whether only the credits from today what he uploads will not be available, or even the past credits of that supplier is also going to be questioned. There is no clarity on that as of now. Now, let me try to bring to one more important aspect. Mechanism of communication under section 38 is yet to be notified. Whether it is covered by way of GSTR 2B under rule 36.4, answer is no. Fundamentally, agar aap dekhoge, so GSTR 2B is brought under rule 60 sub rule 7. Now, section 38 introduces altogether a different section for the communication. In my view, section 38 cannot be linked to GSTR 2B because GSTR 2B, the powers are driven from section 37. So either the communication mechanism must be as per section 37 or it must be as per section 38. It cannot be through both. This is point number one. Validity of rule 36.4 मैंने आपको already बता दिया है कि 37 में जो उन्होंने change किया वहाँ conditions and restrictions word नहीं था, तो वो अब add हुआ है, so which means rule 36.4 is invalid till now, until the time section 37 is going to be implemented. I think in another 6 months or 1 year. Only then there is some validity that rule 36.4 will have. Correct. The last point also I have just talked about. Now, practically, this is first point is very, very important. Whether all the recipients of such supplier will get impacted. Now, you look at the beauty कि अगर एक बार एक सप्लायर को रेड फ्लैग कर दिया गवर्नमेंट ने, तो उसके जितने भी कस्टमर्स हैं उन पूरों को इंपैक्ट होगा. Even those customers where supplier there is a genuine transaction, supplier has made the payment of taxes to the government और पैसा गवर्नमेंट के अकाउंट में चला गया है, even there the credit is being restricted. I don't think that the software would be able to dynamically filter down within the supplier at an invoice level and give the details of this transaction which is mismatched. And even if they give that, let me tell you, it would have a lot of issues and challenges, because we have seen that the way, I don't know if you are aware, customs में ये already concept उन्होंने किया है, red flag. Customs में red flag was done for one of our client. Let me tell you, we had to run from pillar to post. It took 1 year for us to remove the red flag. The question is, अगर GST में ये same red flag वाला concept लेकर आएंगे, इन्होंने ये नहीं बताया, इन्होंने ये तो बता दिया था कि हम supplier को red flag कर देंगे. इसमें ये नहीं बताया कि ये अगर red flag कर दिया supplier को, तो ये remove कैसे होगा? What is the mechanism to remove this red flag? Nowhere. The law is silent on this, which means आपका system software आपको red flag करेगा और फिर आप ये red flag लेकर भागो कमिश्नर के पास, jurisdictional officers के पास में, and all these things, high court के पास जाओ, and you get this red flag removed, which is like 6 months to 1 year process. This is what we already faced in customs. It took me 1 year to remove a red flag under customs.
Sir, sorry to interrupt you, yes, but I think from today onwards there is some restricted. This is allowed that you can see your supplier's details. So red flag can be seen, red flag removal can be seen, and all this will be visible to me online. Only thing is, while going to I will have to go to the portal and see to it. Can you throw some light on today's amendment?
This is on the GST common portal, right? This is on the GST portal में जो change हुआ है. तो सर अभी मेरा point वही है सर. हम देख सकते हैं supplier red flag हो जाएगा. Thanks for bringing out this particular thing. So now this confirms what I told कि जो restriction है ये supplier wise है, transaction wise नहीं है. अभी समझ लीजिए सर supplier red flag हो गया. मेरा क्वेश्चन है, where is the provision in the act for a supplier to remove the red flag? मैकेनिज्म क्या है, कैसे मैनर है, क्या फॉर्म है, किसके पास जाना है रेड फ्लैग रिमूव करने के लिए? कुछ दिया ही नहीं है लॉ में. तो
सर एक चीज जो मैंने रिसेंटली फेस की, that a supplier was he had not filed a return and he was उसका revocation भी नहीं किया था, but as soon as the revocation happened, उसको ICC and everything was removed. So I think red flag removal is their prerogative और उसके बारे में they would have something.
As of now there is nothing there in the act, sir. As of now जो आप बोल रहे हैं सर वो है कैंसिलेशन का. cancellation अलग चीज हो गई sir. Suspension, cancellation, revocation is different. This is totally a new concept brought by section 38.
तो रेड फ्लैग का मैकेनिज्म अगर उन्होंने दिया हुआ है तो रिमूवल के लिए भी रूल्स आएंगे आई थिंक.
करेक्ट आएगा सर, बट आज की डेट में एक्ट में नहीं है. तो अगर एक्ट में आएगा तो सीधा अगले बजट में आएगा, which is again February 2023.
Sir, council meeting में they can bring it.
No, sir. In council they cannot change the act. GST council cannot directly change the act. Otherwise, there has to be a winter session where they have to specifically take this as a special item in the summer session or the winter session and bring specific provision. In the last 5 years, the changes in the act have only taken place in the budget session. Directly through council, they cannot bring this. If they bring it, then it will be only again the same concept.
Today they have bought this thing that where we can see red flag. I'm very sure very soon we will have this also on the thing that red flag removal also pata chalega. Another thing, sir, where I want to put some highlights because time and again we have highlighted. I agree with you, certain provisions are draconian and other things. But what is the background? Because when we see direct tax provisions, we always put this in force that yes, there is some judgment, there is something which has happened, which they are bringing. So why this matching concept has been bought? It was never, government never wanted it. But why we were compelled to bring this matching concept, or government was compelled? If my reading goes right, last 1 month, any day I have picked up a newspaper, the one item which I see through the paper is the raid for ITC, fake invoices. All this supply mismatch and lot of such things. And I will be honest with you, being a professional, I am pained to see that my professional brothers are involved in it. And all this has led to a huge loss of revenue to government. Our clients, they do approach us, sir, bill le aata hu, aap mera ITC claim kijiye. All this probably has worked against what government was envisaging, and they have gone back to this matching theory, which they didn't want at the inception. Maybe the actions by suppliers, some bad professional colleagues, and others who indulge into this fake invoices. Even executives are involved in this.
Nikenji, I understood the point which you are trying to say is that this has been brought because of all the fake invoicing and the rackets that are being busted across the nation on the GST thing. But let me tell you, sir, if I really drill down, then it is about targeting the 1% who is, the corrupt or who is doing this fraudulent activities. Eventually the price is being paid by the 99% who are compliant in this. I am again not saying that we should not have the systems and the measures. Only thing is that the systems and the measures must be fair for all. We cannot make the law keeping 1% in the mind. We need to make the law keeping 99% in the mind. So the point which I'm trying to make,
if they have got some loopholes, they will try to rectify it. Okay,
correct, sir.
Might be wrong. I agree with you, the method might be wrong. But we need to respect the intention also.
No, sir. Nobody can doubt the intention, sir. Intention is always correct. In fact, I would say the intention of GST Council is correct. But the point is that the way in which it is being implemented, it's also important, right?
I agree with you. But yes, there are one for certain measures, because if you go to this decade, the sums are huge involved. Daily, almost on average, I'm seeing 240 CR, 200 CR worth of invoices. And even executives are involved. I will be honest with you on that.
Correct, sir.
Sorry to
agree.
interrupt. Can we take this after the completion of budget presentation?
Yeah. We can. So I think, sir, you can, in case you have more doubts, you can call me, or we can have this discussion in the last 15-20 minutes that we have. Okay, so I need to go a little faster now because we have very less time. Can the supplier's incorrect claim utilization of ITC have impact on the recipient, which I have already talked about when there's a genuine transaction? What is the legitimacy of this red flagging by the supplier? What happens to the past ITC? I've already questioned on that aspect. The red flag concept, we've already seen issues faced in customs, which I've talked about on this. There are going to be huge number of writ petitions. I'm able to see that is going to be flooded on this point, because on a simple basis is that once a supplier is red flagged, Currently, there is no adjudication mechanism. You go to the officer. I don't see much of favorable orders coming in from the lower level officers, except for the tribunal. Tribunal is not formed. Then what is the way? Ultimately, the writ petitions in High Court are eventually going to increase to a greater extent. The payments covered under DRC 03 are no way. There is no mechanism. Agar koi DRC 03 se payment karta hai, there is no mechanism of communication which has been there today. Tax paid by supplier in the subsequent GSTR 3B. Again, there is no system, no mechanism for the recipient to claim that credit because there is no mechanism to communicate in that case. Fundamental एक और जो मुझे issue है यहाँ पर कि there is no provision given for opportunity of being heard. It means you red flag a supplier. I don't have problem. ठीक है, काफी corruption हो रहा है. आप red flag कीजिए supplier को. जो गलत supplier है, you take action against them. But should you not give him an opportunity of being heard? This is called as a principle of natural justice. जहाँ पर अगर आप किसी को कोई red flag लगा रहे हो, so you should give him some opportunity of being heard. Currently in the GST Act, as amended, there is nothing about the opportunity of being heard, which means this executive action is suo moto without any opportunity of being heard. And this is what is again going to lead to excessive delegation of the executive action. So practically, what is that we need to suggest to clients? What is the impact on the businesses? Is it that, possibly a business would now have to look at the GST compliance of the vendor more than their own GST compliance, which has already started, but now it will be more so. That is going to happen practically. Vendor onboarding, vendor communication, and all these things going to be more stringent. GST return filing status vendor ki check ki jayengi, and all these things would be checked before onboarding a vendor. The time and cost in the vendor communications are going to substantially increase. Let me tell you, apart from the litigation under the GST tribunals and the GST benches of the High Court, there is a tremendous litigation that is going to happen even in the civil courts on account of GST issues being faced by the vendor and the suppliers, customers. Purchase orders needs to be amended. Everybody would like to safeguard themselves from others, from the customers and vendors. There must be a system of vendor rating, timely identification. Mere hisab se there should be a monthly system of identifying the non-compliant vendors and its communication to be given to the top management, including purchase department, finance department, tax department, and immediate action plan on that. Regular vendor grooming training is required. We are going to see that the cash flow issues are going to be a lot for the businesses in times to come, because if the credits are being denied, it would lead to a huge amount of taxes to be paid in cash. Technology needs to be embraced for the matching concept. But I would like to bring one point here. Okay, matching mismatch jo ho rahi hai na, don't rely only on software. I have seen, I'll give you a practical example. What I've seen is that when they have done the matching based on software, it was 90% matching. Okay, great. Software has done a phenomenal job. Software is needed. But after आप software से match करने के बाद में मेरे हिसाब से manual matching concept भी होना चाहिए. I have seen businesses where after the software has matched 90%, they have done the manual matching and they are able to squeeze in that 90% to 96%, 97%. So that additional 6-7% you will you'll get that credit by way of a tremendous, if I can say, very detailed manual matching is to be carried out, and a maker checker control must be there on the to-be matching concept. Practically, अभी क्या करना है? ये इतना पूरा discussion जो हमने किया है. What is to be done practically? First, if you feel that this particular provisions are incorrect, ineligible, and not legally valid, go ahead and take the credit as per books of accounts, as per the tax invoice, a genuine transaction, what you have. And you can challenge the constitutional wires of 16.2AA, 16.2BA, and Rule 36.4. I'm sure many SSCs are going to file writ petitions in the High Court for this matter. This is one suggestion that can be given to the client. But then every client don't want to litigate. That is also important. And we are also not litigators. We don't want to create litigation, or we don't want to suggest something that is litigative to the client. Correct? So what is option number 2? Option number 2, what we can suggest to our clients, okay, sir, aap credit lijiye. Take the credit, even if it is not there in GSTR 2B, GSTR 2A, take the credit, provided the transaction is genuine, provided you have a proper purchase and a proper tax invoice. Take the credit, don't utilize. Utilize mat karo credit ko. Electronic credit ledger में पड़ा रहने दो उसको. तो उसको कब यूटिलाइज करेंगे? आज के 2 साल, 3 साल, 4 साल, 5 साल, 7 साल, जब भी अपने पास सुप्रीम कोर्ट या हाई कोर्ट का एक जजमेंट आएगा on the validity of all these things, that time you utilize the credit. This is a wonderful suggestion that we can give to client, because in this budget only there is an amendment that interest will not be applicable if ITC is availed. Interest would be applicable only if ITC is availed and utilized. तो अगर आपने utilize नहीं किया तो interest भी नहीं लगेगा आपको. ठीक है, इसमें सिर्फ एक ही फ्लॉ ऐसा है कि IGST you cannot keep balance in the ledger, because IGST वो सिस्टम जब तक यूटिलाइज नहीं करता है वो आगे बढ़ने नहीं देता है, तो वो एक चैलेंज आएगा IGST का. बट CGST and SGST can be stored in the electronic credit ledger. This is what people used to follow under central excise for I think donkey's years. 40-50 साल ऐसे ही फॉलो करते थे लोग सेंट्रल एक्साइज में. I think the same concept has to be reintroduced in GST. Next suggestion that we can give to client is that you take the ITC as per 2B. आप 2B के हिसाब से ITC लीजिए. Sorry, you take ITC as per books and you reverse it under protest. You reverse it under protest in all those cases where it is not reflecting in 2B. आप उसको रिवर्स कीजिए, प्रॉपर आपके रिटर्न्स में डालकर रिवर्स कीजिए, ताकि आपके पास डॉक्यूमेंटेशन प्रूफ रहे इसका. और जब कभी वो सप्लायर फिर वो टैक्स पेमेंट कर देगा, you take the credit again. You can re-avail the credit. Now, let me tell you, this is one of the best suggestions that we can give to client, because section 41 amend हो गया है GST में. And let me tell you, अभी हम next हम section 41 ही discuss करेंगे. Section 41 says that when the supplier makes the payment of taxes, you can re-avail the credit, and there is no time limit for that. Which means the time limit to take the credit is only for the original availing of the credit, first availing of the credit. But आपने अगर first time के अंदर ले लिया, तो फिर re-availing के लिए time limit applicable नहीं होगा. Now this is a wonderful tool by a revised, amended section 41, which is what also we can look at. And the fourth suggestion, which also many businesses are following, nothing doing. जो 2B में है वही credit लेंगे, अगर नहीं है 2B में तो supplier को debit करेंगे. So this is again one of the suggestions which many businesses are doing. But एक important चीज है, यहाँ पर लोग गलती क्या करते हैं, 2 गलतियां करते हैं. एक तो सप्लायर को डेबिट भी करते हैं लेकिन क्रेडिट भी लेते हैं. So it is important that we as a chartered accountants must be vigilant and check the transactions, that if you have debited to the supplier, you should not take credit, you should reverse that input tax credit. और दूसरा fundamental issue यहाँ पर यह आता है कि आज सप्लायर को डेबिट कर दिया, लेकिन बाद में उस सप्लायर ने अपलोड कर दी डिटेल्स, तो हमने कर दिया बाद में पेमेंट. सो देयर इज नो मैकेनिज्म टू रीअवेल द क्रेडिट. ये मैंने प्रैक्टिकली कुछ क्लाइंट के केसेस में देखे हैं, जहां पर व्हेन वी आस्क दैट अकाउंटेंट कि आपने पहले तो रिवर्स कर दिया क्रेडिट, लेकिन व्हेन यू मेड द पेमेंट टू सप्लायर एंड द सप्लायर हैज अपलोडेड, व्हाई यू हैव नॉट रीअवेल द क्रेडिट? एंड लेट मी टेल यू, द कॉमन आंसर दैट आई रिसीव फ्रॉम द क्लाइंट्स इज, सर देयर वाज अर्लियर अकाउंटेंट, जब रिवर्स किया था वो अकाउंटेंट दूसरा था, आज मैं हूं, मुझे नहीं पता उसने किस पर रिवर्स किया था, आज का मैंने देखा है. एंड ये एक बहुत बड़ी, जो अकाउंटेंट चेंज होते हैं एंड यू लूज द क्रेडिट इन द प्रोसेस, एंड ऑल दिस कैलकुलेशंस आर डन इन द एक्सेल शीट. सो ये एक बहुत बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है, विच ऑल्सो वी एज अ टैक्स पेयर, आई मीन प्रोफेशनल्स मस्ट बी वेरी विजिलेंट when we recommend and do the audit of the client. देखो GST audit अगर हम करते हैं तो प्लीज इसको don't treat it as an exercise of only reconciliation. GST audit सिर्फ reconciliation का exercise नहीं है. GST audit is an authority. यानी अगर आपने GST audit कर लिया तो कल के दिन क्लाइंट को डिपार्टमेंट से कोई सरप्राइज नहीं मिलना चाहिए। ये कॉन्फिडेंस के साथ हमको एज अ चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स वी नीड टू do GST audit. That is very, very important. Then only, all this जो हम आजकल सुनते हैं, the reputation and all these things. So this is all can go only once we do our work in a diligent manner. Now this is very, very important. Section 41 amendment in my view is going to be landmark. ये बहुत बड़ा amendment है section 41 में. If you see, एक तो provisional ITC का concept उन्होंने निकाल दिया है कि there is no question of ITC taken on provisional, which means ITC must be taken on a self-assessment basis. Self-assessment basis पर ITC मिलेगा. Now you see this line, ITC would be liable to be reversed with interest if supplier has not paid GST. Such ITC could be re-availed upon payment of GST by the supplier. अभी यहाँ पर कोई time limit नहीं है. Section 41 में there is no time limit. It says that तो ठीक है, बेसिकली अगर समझ लो सप्लायर ने नहीं डाला 2B में तो आई विल रिवर्स, बट देन आई कैन रीअवेल द क्रेडिट लेटर ऑन वंस द सप्लायर हैज अपलोडेड द इनवॉइस और ही हैज मेड द पेमेंट ऑफ टैक्सेस. अब प्रॉब्लम कहाँ आएगी, बिकॉज अगर समझ लीजिए सप्लायर ने अगर वो टाइम लिमिट के अंदर पे कर दिया तो वो GSTR 1 में डाल सकते हो और आपको दिख जाएगा 2B में. बट इफ द सप्लायर हैज मेड द पेमेंट ऑफ टैक्सेस आफ्टर द September or November of the next financial year, then how a recipient is going to come to know about this payment. तो इसका कोई मैकेनिज्म अभी तक गवर्नमेंट ने बताया नहीं है कि कम्युनिकेशन कैसे होगा. अगर समझ लीजिए सप्लायर ने पेमेंट किया आफ्टर नवंबर ऑफ द नेक्स्ट फाइनेंशियल ईयर, तो लीगली एज पर सेक्शन 41 द रिसिपिएंट कैन टेक द इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट. बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली सप्लायर को अपॉर्चुनिटी ही नहीं दिया गया अपलोड करने का, और वो सिस्टम उन्होंने ब्लॉक कर दिया. एंड द सप्लायर इज नॉट एबल, द रिसिपिएंट कुड नॉट सी the details. Then in my view we can go back and follow what we used to follow under central excise, is take a declaration from the supplier on his letterhead that he has made the payment of these taxes and he has made the payment against these invoices that he has supplied to us, and based on that declaration we can go ahead and re-avail the credit as per section 41. This is going to be a landmark amendment, and I suggest everybody to please go ahead and read that section 41. It is going to change the landscape of this credit blockage that is happening because of the time limit. Mechanism of such ITC reversal and re-availment is yet to be prescribed. अभी prescribe नहीं किया गया, but I am sure it will be prescribed by way of rules. As of today, it is not there. Interplay between 16(2) and amendment. अभी ये एक बहुत बड़ा problem होने वाला है कि what is the difference between availment of credit and entitlement to credit? I mean, how do you differentiate between availment of credit and entitlement to credit? Section 16(2), Section 16(4), ये सभी जगह पर they have not used the word availment of credit. They have used the word entitlement to credit, which means एक जो interpretation निकल के ऐसे आता है कि my entitlement to credit is what is I reflect in my books of accounts, and my availment of credit is what I show in GSTR 3B. तो जो मेरी कंडीशंस है, रेस्ट्रिक्शंस है, और जो 16(4) की टाइम लिमिट है, that is for my uploading of credit in my books of accounts and not in the GSTR 3B. There were judgments in this context under service tax, multiple judgments on this concept that there is a difference between entitlement to credit and disclosure of that credit in GSTR 3B. So with this amendment, this issue is going to further break up. And one view that is coming out is that all the time limit which is there in the GST law relating to credit is for disclosure in the books and not in the GST returns. So that is going to be one issue. Second issue is that the 16(2) conditions that are there, are they preconditions for taking the credit or they are the post facto conditions? In my view, these are the post facto conditions, which means eventually to be entitled to credit, you should have all these conditions satisfied, but that does not stop you to self-assess and take the credit, because availing of credit is on a self-assessment basis. Entitlement of credit is based on 16(2) and 16(4) conditions. So that is another issue that is going to be there in future. Now there are few cases जहाँ पर time limit बढ़ा दी गई है, where earlier the time limit was September. Now it has been increased to 30th November. For example, ITC availment, earlier it was ड्यू डेट ऑफ सितंबर रिटर्न, यानी सितंबर की रिटर्न आप अक्टूबर 20 तारीख तक आपको फाइल करनी होती थी और 20 अक्टूबर तक आप आईटीसी ले सकते थे पिछले फाइनेंशियल ईयर का। तो उस 20 अक्टूबर को अभी 30th नवंबर कर दिया गया है। 20th अक्टूबर इज एक्सटेंडेड टू 30th नवंबर। नाउ द असेसी कैन टेक इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट अप टू 30th नवंबर ऑफ द नेक्स्ट फाइनेंशियल ईयर। तो 50 दिन का एक्स्ट्रा टाइम दिया गया है फॉर टेकिंग आईटीसी। सेम 50 दिन का एक्स्ट्रा टाइम दिया है क्रेडिट नोट रिपोर्ट करने के लिए, बिकॉज क्रेडिट नोट के लिए भी टाइम लिमिट अक्टूबर 20 तारीख ही था। सिमिलरली जीएसटीआर 1 और जीएसटीआर 3B में अगर कोई एरर्स और ओमिशंस अगर आपको डिस्क्लोज करने हैं तो उसका भी अक्टूबर 20 टाइम लिमिट था, जिसको इंक्रीज कर दिया है 30 नवंबर तक। ठीक है। सिमिलरली अगर आपको जीएसटीआर 8 ई कॉमर्स ऑपरेटर को जीएसटीआर 8 अगर रेक्टिफाई करना है तो उसके लिए भी टाइम लिमिट 30th नवंबर एक्सटेंड करते हैं। यहाँ पर एक प्रॉब्लम ऐसी है, अभी पहले इट वाज ड्यू डेट ऑफ फाइलिंग ऑफ रिटर्न, नाउ दे आर डीलिंग विद रिटर्न फाइलिंग एंड दे हैव गिवन अ स्टैटिक डेट। अभी स्टैटिक डेट से प्रॉब्लम क्या हो जाएगी कि अगर आप अक्टूबर की रिटर्न फाइल करोगे तो उसकी ड्यू डेट रहेगी 20 नवंबर, लेकिन टाइम लिमिट इज गिवन अप टू 30th नवंबर। So effectively a time limit 20th November and not 30th November. So whatever that we are talking of 40 days of increase in time is actually 30 days, not 40 days. Because आप अगर आपकी जो ड्यू डेट है रिटर्न फाइलिंग की वो तो 20 नवंबर है अक्टूबर की, करेक्ट? So all these time limits actually are 20th November and not 30th November. There is one more interpretation that is coming. Since the mechanism to avail credit is based on self-assessment and it is in books, therefore the time limit is actually up to 30th November to be taken in books, which you can report in the returns up to 20th December. तो अब ये एक बहुत बड़ा डिस्प्यूट होने वाला है कि ये जो 30 नवंबर है ये इसको कैसे कैलकुलेट करें। इज इट अक्टूबर की रिटर्न जो 20 नवंबर तक फाइल होगी तब तक क्रेडिट लेना है, या नवंबर 30 तक जो ट्रांजैक्शन हुए हैं उसकी जो रिटर्न 20 दिसंबर को फाइल होगी तब तक क्रेडिट मिलेगा। आई थिंक गवर्नमेंट मस्ट क्लैरिफाई ऑन दिस एस्पेक्ट, बिकॉज ये एक इंटरप्रिटेशनल इशू नहीं तो आगे जाके हो जाएगा। कुछ ऐसा चीज नवंबर की रिटर्न दिसंबर 20 को फाइल करे तब तक सोचेंगे टाइम लिमिट है, और कुछ ऐसा चीज नवंबर 20 तक ही सोचेंगे टाइम लिमिट। तो आई स्ट्रांगली रिकमेंड दैट द गवर्नमेंट मस्ट क्लैरिफाई टू अवॉइड एनी कंफ्यूजन on this time limit of 30th November, because पहले time limit was linked with return filing, now it is delinked. Amendment relating to section 37, I'll not go too much deeper into this amendment, just to give you some insight. Section 37 में अभी पहले rule 59(6) था, जहां पर you cannot file GSTR 1 अगर आपने GSTR 3B नहीं फाइल किया तो आप GSTR 1 फाइल नहीं कर सकते हो। सॉरी, अगर आपने GSTR 1 फाइल नहीं किया तो आप GSTR 3B फाइल नहीं कर सकते हो। ये रेस्ट्रिक्शन था इन द रूल्स। देयर वाज नो प्रोविजन इन द एक्ट टू एक्चुअली पुट दिस रेस्ट्रिक्शन। तो अभी उन्होंने एक्ट में चेंज कर दिया है टू गिव द पावर। तो दिस इज वेरी अनफॉर्चुनेट कि पहले रूल बनता है और फिर एक्ट बनता है टू गिव द चेंज। बाकी रेक्टिफिकेशन करने का टाइम लिमिट एक्सटेंड कर दिया गया, विच आई ऑलरेडी टॉक्ड अबाउट। And the mechanism, as of today, there is no mechanism to rectify GSTR 3B. Currently, there is a mechanism to rectify GSTR 1, but rectification में भी सिर्फ errors rectify हो सकते हैं, omissions rectify नहीं होता है even today. Even though there is a provision in the law to rectify omissions rectify करने का कोई mechanism दिया ही नहीं पोर्टल में। It is very unfortunate कि अगर आपने GSTR 1 में कोई चीज मिस कर दी है तो उस GSTR 1 में आप फिर उसको rectify नहीं कर सकते हो। अगर आप नेक्स्ट GSTR 1 में करोगे तो आपका GSTR 1 और 3B मिसमैच हो जाएगा, एंड यू नो द चैलेंजेस जो मिसमैच में आपको आएंगी। नेक्स्ट, नॉन रेसिडेंट टैक्सेबल पर्सन के लिए पहले लेट फाइलिंग फी कुछ था नहीं, तो अब लेट फाइलिंग फी प्रेस्क्राइब किया जाएगा। QRMP स्कीम, जो स्मॉल टैक्स पेयर्स के लिए जो QRMP स्कीम थी, दैट वाज ब्रॉट बाय वे ऑफ रूल्स। उसको कोई सेक्शन का वैलिडिटी नहीं था, तो अभी सेक्शन 39(7) से वो रूल को उन्होंने अथॉरिटी दिया। ऐसे कम से कम 6 से 7 अमेंडमेंट ऐसे हैं जहां पर ऑलरेडी वो चल रहे हैं बाय वे ऑफ रूल्स, बट नाउ दे हैव ब्रॉट द प्रोविजन इन द एक्ट टू गिव लाइफ टू दैट पर्टिकुलर रूल। दिस इज वन मोर सच अमेंडमेंट। GSTR 3B के लिए भी एरर्स और ओमिशंस के लिए रेक्टिफिकेशन का लॉ में एक्ट में उन्होंने दिया, बट एज ऑफ टुडे GSTR 3B, इवन दो देयर इज अ प्रोविजन इन द एक्ट, देयर इज नो मैकेनिज्म टू रेक्टिफाई GSTR 3B. आई थिंक गवर्नमेंट मस्ट वर्क ऑन दिस एंड GSTR 3B रिवाइज रेक्टिफाई करने की अपॉर्चुनिटी एसएससी को देनी चाहिए, ताकि GSTR 1 और 3B में अगर कोई डिफरेंस आ भी गया तो एसएससी रेक्टिफाई करके उसको क्लियर कर देगा। अभी एक प्रॉब्लम यह है कि एसएससी कैनॉट फाइल GSTR 3B until they have filed GSTR 1. Please listen to this very carefully. एक प्रोविजन ऐसा है which is already there कि you cannot file GSTR 1 until you have filed the GSTR 3B of the previous month. यानी अगर आपने पिछले महीने का GSTR 3B फाइल नहीं किया तो आपको ये मंथ का GSTR 1 फाइल करने का ऑप्शन ही नहीं दिया जाएगा। अभी एक और अमेंडमेंट लाया है जहां पर अगर आपने पिछले महीने का GSTR 1 फाइल नहीं किया तो आपको 20 तारीख अगर आपने ये महीने का GSTR 1 फाइल नहीं किया तो आपको GSTR 3B फाइल करने का मैकेनिज्म नहीं। इट मींस GSTR 1 और GSTR 3B की फाइलिंग दोनों एक दूसरे के ऊपर इंटरडिपेंडेंट हो जाएगी। उसका मतलब अगर आपने GSTR 1 फाइल किया तो ही आपको GSTR 3B का वो पॉपअप दिखेगा, उसके बाद में आपने GSTR 3B फाइल किया तो ही आपको अगले मंथ की GSTR 1 का पॉपअप दिखेगा, और उसके बाद में अगर वो मंथ की आपने GSTR 1 फाइल की तो ही आपको उस मंथ का GSTR 3B दिखेगा। यानी आपको 1 3B ये सीक्वेंस में ही फाइल करनी पड़ेगी। आप एक भी अगर बीच में आपने ड्रॉप कर दिया तो आपको अगला पूरा आपका फाइलिंग हॉल्ट हो जाएगा। तो पहले सिर्फ GSTR 1 के लिए ये सीक्वेंस थी और सिर्फ GSTR 3B के लिए सीक्वेंस थी, अब ये सीक्वेंस दोनों को मर्ज कर दिया। तो इसका एक बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज आगे आएगा एसएससीज को, वेयर दे विल नॉट बी एबल टू अपलोड अदरवाइज। रूल 86A, रूल 86B, ये सभी रूल्स ऑलरेडी थे, इनको अभी एक्ट का सपोर्ट दे दिया गया है। अनफॉर्चुनेटली रूल 86A में इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर ब्लॉक हो जाता है विदाउट एनी अपॉर्चुनिटी ऑफ बीइंग हर्ड, और हमने इतने इश्यूज देखे हैं जहां पर क्लाइंट का इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर ब्लॉक कर देते हैं एंड द ओनली ऑप्शन दैट यू हैव इज टू रन बिफोर द हाई कोर्ट। सो लॉट ऑफ रिट पिटिशंस आर बीन फाइल्ड इन हाई कोर्ट फॉर दिस। एक बहुत अच्छा अमेंडमेंट ये है कि one can transfer the amount lying in the electronic cash ledger between the distinct person। यानी समझ लीजिए अगर एक एसएससी है, उनका जीएसटी में महाराष्ट्र, हरियाणा और गुजरात 3 स्टेट्स में रजिस्ट्रेशन है, और उनके पास कुछ अमाउंट है इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कैश लेजर में गुजरात के जीएसटी नंबर में, बट गुजरात में उनकी क्योंकि कोई लायबिलिटी नहीं है तो वो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कैश लेजर ऐसे ही पड़ा है गुजरात में। तो इंस्टेड ऑफ क्लेमिंग रिफंड इन गुजरात, आप गुजरात के जीएसटी नंबर से वो अमाउंट जो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कैश लेजर है उसको आप महाराष्ट्र में या हरियाणा में आपके जितने भी और जीएसटी रजिस्ट्रेशन है वो पैन नंबर के अंदर उसमें आप उसको ट्रांसफर कर सकते हैं, विच इज अ वेरी वेलकम अमेंडमेंट। इन माय व्यू दिस अमेंडमेंट शुड आल्सो बी ब्रॉट फॉर इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर, बिकॉज काफी बार हम देखते हैं कि एसएससीज का ऐसा होता है कि गुजरात में इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर में पैसा ब्लॉक हुआ है और महाराष्ट्र में कैश में भर रहे हैं और दे आर नॉट एबल टू यूज इट। एटलीस्ट फॉर द सेंट्रल टैक्सेस दे कैन ब्रिंग दिस पर्टिकुलर अमेंडमेंट। ये बहुत ही वेलकम अमेंडमेंट है रिलेटिंग टू इंटरेस्ट, जहां पर एक बहुत बड़ी प्रॉब्लम थी कि इंटरेस्ट जो है अगर आपने आईटीसी सिर्फ अवेल किया तो इंटरेस्ट लगा रही थी गवर्नमेंट, और वी वर कॉन्स्टेंटली सेइंग कि यू कैन नॉट लेवी इंटरेस्ट मियरली ऑन अवेलिंग ऑफ क्रेडिट। अवेलिंग ऑफ क्रेडिट तो सिर्फ क्रेडिट को लेकर मेरे पॉकेट में रखा है, ठीक है ना, तो उस पर इंटरेस्ट लगना इज रॉन्ग। तो नाउ दिस इज अ रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव अमेंडमेंट व्हिच द गवर्नमेंट हैज ब्रॉट, वेलकम अमेंडमेंट, दैट इंटरेस्ट तभी लगेगा जब आईटीसी आपने अवेल करके यूटिलाइज किया। अगर आपने अवेल करके यूटिलाइज नहीं किया तो इंटरेस्ट नहीं लगेगा। इट्स अ वंडरफुल अमेंडमेंट, रेट्रोस्पेक्टिवली अमेंडेड विद एफर्ट फ्रॉम 1st of July 2017। मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंटली आईटीसी के केसेस में हमने देखा है कि डिपार्टमेंट इज इशूइंग शो कॉज नोटिसेस एंड चार्जिंग इंटरेस्ट एट द रेट ऑफ 24%। तो इसको भी उन्होंने रेट्रोस्पेक्टिवली अमेंड कर दिया और बोला है कि भाई आईटीसी के केसेस में भी जो इंटरेस्ट लगेगा वो सिर्फ 18% से लगेगा, 24% से नहीं लगेगा। इट्स अगेन अ वेलकम अमेंडमेंट आई मस्ट से। बट एक प्रॉब्लम यह आएगी कि अगर मैंने ऑलरेडी 24% के हिसाब से भर दिया तो अब क्या करूं मैं? प्लीज गो अहेड एंड क्लेम रिफंड। अगर आपने ऑलरेडी 24% से इंटरेस्ट पे कर दिया है आईटीसी के केसेस में, तो जो बैलेंस 6% एक्स्ट्रा आपने इंटरेस्ट पे किया है, यू कैन गो अहेड एंड क्लेम रिफंड। बट दिस बेनिफिट इज गिवन ओनली फॉर इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर। एक और जो बहुत बड़ी प्रॉब्लम इंडस्ट्री में चल रही है is in respect of cash amount lying in the electronic cash ledger। उसको भी गवर्नमेंट उस पे भी इंटरेस्ट लगा रहा है, even though it is already availed and not utilized। So already there is a favorable High Court judgment in this case, but unfortunately, at the ground level, field formations are issuing show cause notices. I hope clarity also comes for electronic cash ledger the way it has come for electronic credit ledger. Some miscellaneous amendment in the case of refunds, जहाँ पर पहले इलेक्ट्रॉनिक कैश लेजर में जो पैसा था वो अगर रिफंड क्लेम करना है तो आपको GSTR 3 फाइल करना चाहिए, बट अब GSTR 3 तो इम्प्लीमेंट हुआ नहीं, तो उसको उन्होंने अभी डीलिंक कर दिया GSTR 3 से. आपको RFD 01 फाइल करना पड़ेगा even to claim the money lying in the electronic cash ledger. It is a pain that you have to go to the officer to claim your own money which is there in the cash ledger, but you have to go through that process. Nothing can be done because GSTR 3 is not introduced. Because originally the GST law आया था, it was supposed to be automatic. Very unfortunate. UNO foreign consulates को सिर्फ 6 महीने का time था refund का, which is now extended to 2 years, just like any other refund applications. This is also good move. Government was having the power to withhold the refund. अगर समझ लीजिए आपकी कोई liability due है, तो refund withhold करने का government के पास में power था, which was there only for zero rated supplies. तो उसको extend करके सभी refunds को extend कर दिया गया है. तो basically इसका सबसे बड़ा problem, जब आप electronic cash ledger refund claim करोगे, वहां पर ये problem आएगा. So we need to make sure that when the client is applying for refund, we need to see that there is no pending dues lying in electronic liability ledger. SEZ जब supply, SEZ को जब हम supply करते हैं as a zero rated supply with payment of tax, so there was a confusion कि उसको जो 2 years का time limit है refund का कब से calculate करना चाहिए. Law में specifically वो provision था नहीं, तो department used to interpret, somebody used to interpret from the date of supply, somebody used to interpret from the date of payment of tax. तो इस पे काफी सारा issues हमने देखे हैं. एक judgment with I think SR Enterprises where this was litigated. So this has been clarified that it has to be checked from the date of filing of GSTR 3B, just like any other refunds. बहुत ही unfortunate amendment एक और है for the small taxpayers. Composition scheme में जो taxpayers है, उनको पहले ऐसा था कि अगर उन्होंने 3 consecutive period की अगर returns file नहीं किया, तो they are liable for cancellation of the GST registration. Already GST registration cancellation का इतना बड़ा challenge हम लोग face कर रहे हैं. अभी इन्होंने इस टाइम लिमिट को रिड्यूस करके 3 मंथ्स कर दिया. तो टाइम लिमिट वाज 9 मंथ्स. अगर आपने 9 मंथ्स तक जीएसटी रिटर्न फाइल नहीं की, देन यू आर लायबल फॉर कैंसिलेशन ऑफ जीएसटी रजिस्ट्रेशन. नाउ द कंपोजिशन स्कीम टैक्स पेयर्स आर गोइंग टू प्रैक्टिकली फाइल वंस इन अ ईयर रिटर्न, बिकॉज क्वार्टरली रिटर्न निकल के वंस इन अ ईयर रिटर्न हो गया. अब रिटर्न फाइल नहीं कर दी तो उसका रजिस्ट्रेशन कैंसिल हो सकता है. तो फॉर ऑल योर क्लाइंट्स, स्मॉल क्लाइंट्स, it is very important that we suggest our small clients to file the yearly return within 3 months of the end of the financial year. Even for the normal taxpayers, ये जो टाइम थी पहले 6 months थी, अभी इसको रूल्स में डाल दिया है कि गवर्नमेंट विल प्रेस्क्राइब द टाइम लिमिट. तो अभी when the rules will be amended, we'll come to know what is the time limit that will be prescribed. Then there are some miscellaneous amendments. Alcoholic liquor and that fish oil, जिस पे exemption दिया गया था, but past के period के लिए there was a question mark के इस पे लगेगा नहीं लगेगा, उसको retrospectively भी exempt कर दिया है. And of course उसमें ये भी बोला है कि refund नहीं मिलेगा, which in my view is not a correct way, because when there was no authority to levy the tax, you have charged the tax. So where is the question of you denying the refund to the taxpayers on that? Now we will quickly look at another 5 minutes on key amendments in respect of customs. Then we will have a good 15 minutes for our discussion on various issues जो आज हमने discuss किए हैं. First, Canon India का Supreme Court का judgment था that DRI is not the proper officer to issue show cause notice. बहुत landmark judgment था. Larger bench का judgment था Supreme Court में. It was a celebrated judgment. Very unfortunate that government has now amended the act और बहुत ही wide scale पर amend किया है कि proper officer कोई भी हो सकता है. Multiple officers can also do the investigation against the assessee under customs. Most importantly, They can determine the proper officer based on various criteria, territory, computer assigned, class of persons, multiple criteria देते हैं. और सबसे draconian is that even for the past, जहां पर कोई कोर्ट का ऑर्डर आया है फेवरेबल एसएससी का, ये अमेंडमेंट एप्लीकेबल हो जाएगा. And even for the past, they can go ahead and demand the taxes. It is a retrospective amendment where Supreme Court's order is not respected by the authorities, and Supreme Court's order is defeated by way of a retrospective amendment. So this is unwelcome amendment under customs. एक और सेंचुरी मिल सुप्रीम कोर्ट का मेटल सुप्रीम कोर्ट का जजमेंट था, वेयर इट वाज हेल्ड दैट यू कैन नॉट क्वेश्चन द कस्टम्स वैल्यूएशन बेस्ड ऑन सिंपल अलर्ट्स और द वैल्यूएशन ट्रेंड. आप ट्रेंड के हिसाब से वैल्यूएशन किसी का क्वेश्चन नहीं कर सकते. सुप्रीम कोर्ट का जजमेंट था, बट अगेन दैट जजमेंट इज ऑल्सो बीइंग नलिफाइड, विच मीन्स कल के दिन अगर ऑफिसर को लगा कि आपकी वैल्यूएशन गलत है इंपोर्ट में, बेस्ड ऑन सम सॉर्ट ऑफ अलर्ट और सम सॉर्ट ऑफ अ ट्रेंड, कि अभी आप 100 रुपए में सडनली आपका 90 कैसे हो गया इंपोर्ट, यू आर ट्राइंग टू रिड्यूस शिफ्ट द टैक्सेस, एंड दे कैन आस्क द इंपोर्टर टू गिव एडिशनल ऑब्लिगेशंस एंड चेक्स. सो दिस इज अगेन द सुप्रीम कोर्ट जजमेंट इज ट्राइड टू बी curtailed. एडवांस रूलिंग एप्लीकेशन में उन्होंने बताया कि भाई दिस इज अ न्यू कॉन्सेप्ट व्हिच हैज बीन ब्रॉट इन कस्टम्स, कि एडवांस रूलिंग में अगर आप एप्लीकेशन डालते हो तो उसकी वैलिडिटी सिर्फ 3 साल रहेगी. यानी अगर एडवांस रूलिंग में एप्लीकेशन डाला है तो उसकी वैलिडिटी सिर्फ 3 साल रहेगी. उसके 3 साल बाद में दैट इज नॉट बाइंडिंग. तो यानी अगर समझ लीजिए एक एसएससी को कोई फेवरेबल एडवांस रूलिंग आ गई तो उसको 3 साल बाद फिर से वो एडवांस रूलिंग एप्लीकेशन डालना होगा टू गेट द वैलिडिटी ऑफ अनदर 3 years. Till now, the validity of advance ruling authority decision was lifetime, but now it has been made only 3 years. I just hope कि ये amendment GST में नहीं आए. Otherwise, I don't know what is going to happen. Already people are suffering by advance ruling authority orders. गलती से कोई favorable order मिल गया तो वो भी सिर्फ 3 महीने बाद invalid हो जाएगा. This is a good amendment. Recovery action. अगर कोई authority है जो search, seizure या कोई audit investigate करती है, तो उसका जो शोकॉज नोटिस है, एडजुडिकेशन है, वो जुरिस्डिक्शन ऑफिसर करेगा, ना कि दैट ऑफिसर. दिस इज अ गुड ट्रांसपेरेंट मैकेनिज्म. नेक्स्ट इज पब्लिकेशन ऑफ इंपोर्ट एक्सपोर्ट डेटा. कुछ वेबसाइट्स होती थी जो आई थिंक जोबा कॉर्प इज वन वेबसाइट, सी एयर एक्सपोर्ट इंपोर्ट इज वन वेबसाइट, जहां पर क्लासिफिकेशन ऑफ द कस्टम्स प्रोडक्ट ऑफ द पास्ट डिस्प्ले करते थे, वो लोग पब्लिसाइज करते थे, और काफी एसएससीज को उससे फायदा होता था टू अंडरस्टैंड द एचएसएन कोड. कितनी बार मुझे पता है कि अगर हमको डाउट आता था कि एचएसएन कोड क्या है और वी जस्ट वांट टू वैलिडेट द एचएसएन कोड, वी यूज्ड टू रिफर जोबा कॉर्प और सी एयर वेबसाइट. यहाँ पर कस्टम्स में क्या एचएसएन कोड में बड़ी बड़ी कंपनीज ने इंपोर्ट किया पता चलता था. बट अभी उन्होंने ये चीज ब्लॉक कर दी है, एंड नोबडी कैन प्रोहिबिट द nobody can publish the information of imports and exports on any website. So this is that way not so welcome amendment for the people who were benefited from those data or information of the website. But from a confidentiality perspective, it's a good amendment for the importer who has actually imported. IGCR rules, IGCRD rules, जहाँ पर concessional rate of duty दी जाती थी, काफी प्रोसीजर्स थे, मंथली, क्वार्टरली, ट्रांजैक्शन वाइज इंपोर्ट जब होता था आपको इतने डिक्लेरेशंस देने पड़ते थे. इन सभी चीजों को अभी ऑनलाइन कर दिया गया है, एंड द डिक्लेरेशन जो पहले परमिशंस होती थी उसको भी इंटीमेशन में कन्वर्ट कर दिया. पूरा प्रोसीजर इज गिवन. आई डोंट वांट टू गो इनटू द डिटेल्स. यू नीड टू फाइल IGCR 1, IGCR 2 and IGCR 3 online. So this is a very, very, very good amendment. Even the procedure has been simplified. So people who were facing big time problem in IGCR, I think it's they will be happy of this amendment. Very important amendment. Please pay attention. SEZ Act. SEZ Act would be abolished. Now I am reading the actual text of the budget speech. The special economic zones will be replaced with a new legislation that will enable the states to become partner in development of enterprise and service hubs. तो अब एक नया कॉन्सेप्ट आएगा, डेवलपमेंट ऑफ एंटरप्राइज एंड सर्विस हब्स. अब ये एंटरप्राइज एंड सर्विस हब्स में सेंटर और स्टेट दोनों मिलकर करेंगे, rather than only सेंटर, बिकॉज SEZ में ओनली सेंटर है. My only worry is the moment there is a higher involvement of states, there is a tremendous corruption as it has been seen traditionally. I just hope that it doesn't lead to any further corruption in this particular field. This will cover all large existing and new industrial enclaves to optimally utilize available infrastructure and enhance competitiveness of exports. तो ये एक amendment बहुत ही important रहेगा, which we need to see. I think they are telling this reform should be implemented by 30th September. तो बहुत बड़ा reform होगा for SEZs. In part A of my speech, I have referred to proposed reforms in SEZ. Alongside, we will also undertake reforms in customs administration of SEZ. तो जो administration of SEZ है, उस पे भी reforms आएंगे, and it shall henceforth be fully IT driven and function on the customs national portal with a focus on higher facilitation and with only risk-based checks. This will ease doing business by SEZ units considerably. This reform shall be implemented by 30th September 2022. अगर आपके कोई clients हैं जो SEZ में हैं, so this is one important update that you must give to your clients. Project imports बहुत ही beautiful law था, 5% पे आप import कर सकते थे, पर उसको अभी धीरे धीरे फेस वाइज मैनर में फेस आउट करके 5% को 7.5% कर दिया जाएगा. आई ओनली हैव अ प्रॉब्लम बिकॉज क्या होता है यहाँ पर ना, प्रोजेक्ट इंपोर्ट्स में जनरली जो डील होती है स्पेशली फॉर द गवर्नमेंट प्रोजेक्ट्स जैसे मेट्रो प्रोजेक्ट्स, एयरपोर्ट प्रोजेक्ट्स में, जहाँ पर प्राइसिंग ऑलरेडी फ्रीज हो जाती है कस्टमर के साथ में डिपेंडिंग अपॉन माई कॉस्टिंग ऑफ द कस्टम ड्यूटी. अब अगर कस्टम ड्यूटी बढ़ जाएगी तो आई डोंट नो वेदर दिस ऑल अथॉरिटीज और जो कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स है जो गवर्नमेंट के लिए काम करते थे, गवर्नमेंट इज गोइंग टू गिव देम द बेनिफिट ऑफ द इंक्रीज्ड कस्टम ड्यूटी इन द टेंडर्स व्हिच वर ऑलरेडी where the bid was done and the price was freezed. So this is one problem that will be faced. 350 exemption entries to be gradually phased out. Customs से काफी exemption entries निकालने वाले हैं. In fact ये साल में customs में काफी सारे amendments आने वाले हैं. And let me tell you, there are so many of us who are not practicing in customs, but let me tell you, customs is one big area of practice. Hardly there are professionals who are practicing in customs. तो अगर एक एरिया है जहां पर रियली हमको प्रैक्टिस करना चाहिए एज अ चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स, वी नीड टू रियली सर्व क्लाइंट्स इज कस्टम्स, बिकॉज ट्रेडिशनली क्लाइंट भी सीएचए एजेंट के ऊपर डिपेंड होता है कस्टम्स में. आई हैव सीन केसेस, गलत वैल्यूएशन, गलत एचएसएन कोड, गलत रेट ऑफ टैक्स, एग्जम्पशंस अवेलेबल है बट लिया ही नहीं बिकॉज किसी को पता ही नहीं. सीएचए एजेंट तो कभी बुक खुलता नहीं है एंड चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स कभी कस्टम्स में गए नहीं, तो पीपल आर paying tremendously incorrect higher custom duties because of lack of awareness by the client, lack of knowledge by the CHA agent, and lack of knowledgeable chartered accountants and people like us in that area. So this is a very good area of practice which we all must think to enter. And luckily ये साल काफी amendments आने वाला है customs में, so that way also it's a good thing for us to learn customs. And then there are a lot of tariff amendments which I cannot go into because काफी सारे rate changes हुए हैं customs में, so that is there. And central excise में because government wants to promote the biodiesel, तो इसलिए जो normal petrol और diesel उस पे ₹2 excise duty बढ़ा दिए ताकि businesses must more focus on biodiesel rather than the normal petrol diesel. So with this, I have concluded my session on the topic of budget changes. I tried to focus more on the ITC side. And I might have gone a little faster in the end, but I'm sorry because I had to cover the entire session. I thank you all for patient listening. Over to coordinators. I can take questions now.
Yes.
But there are no questions. I am surprised. Either my message has not gone properly, or everybody is confused, or everybody has understood fully.
Thank you very much, sir. There is now it's open for all the members for question and answer session. There is one question in chat box. If you can just see.
Interest rate in 15.3 is 24%, right? See, we need to understand that 24% जो budget में डाला है, that is the up to 24%. They can go up to 24%. But उन्होंने जो notification थी जिसमें actual rate था, वहाँ पर अभी के लिए तो 18% उन्होंने change कर दिया. So that is only up to 24%. That is a power that they can go up to 24%. But actually today it is 18%. You should go through one more amendment. Actually, यहाँ पर काफी लोगों को confusion हो रहा है because people are reading only one part of the amendment. They are not reading the other part of the amendment. The first part of the amendment talks about this 24%, but then there is a one more amendment below where they have amended the notification and made it 18%. What is the eligibility of ITC for prepaid expenses? Ravi sir, मेरे हिसाब से तो prepaid expenses के ऊपर immediate ITC मिल जाना चाहिए और which should be substantiated by the actual receipt of service at a later point of time. In my view, sir, 16(2) की जो amendments है, that is not conditions है, that is not preconditions, that is the post facto conditions to be satisfied.
Yes, Prashant sir.
So today, so 1 minute, Pankaj ji ka question is, so if today I have to reverse ITC due to audit objection by department for FY18, I shall pay interest 18%. Yes, you should pay interest 18% only. In fact, अगर आपने past में 24% pay किया, please refund claim कीजिए. But then वो refund के लिए 2 साल की time limit applicable रहेगी. For quarterly 3B filers, effectively there is no extension of time for availing ITC for quarterly 3B. नहीं, ITC की जो time limit है वो सभी के लिए extend किया है. तो अच्छा, हाँ, I think yes. Very valid question.
Sorry, Prashant Choria sir, mic mute कीजिए please.
Vipin ji has got a very valid question because क्या होगा, quarterly taxpayer की जो return है वो जुलाई से सितंबर की return रहेगी और जिसको आपको आई थिंक जो भी ड्यू डेट है तब तक फाइल करना पड़ेगा और जो नेक्स्ट रिटर्न रहेंगे वो सीधा अक्टूबर टू दिसंबर रहेगी जिसको आप अगेन यू विल फाइल बाय 25th of January व्हाटएवर द ड्यू डेट इज देयर. तो इफेक्टिवली आई थिंक क्वार्टरली रिटर्न के लिए ये अमेंडमेंट जो आईटीसी का दिया गया है फॉर द स्मॉल टैक्स पेयर्स it becomes only an eyewash. Good point. I did not notice this.
But sir, in this case हम लोग if का यूटिलाइजेशन करके एटलीस्ट जो सप्लाई शो करना है वो शो कर सकते हैं टिल 30th November यूजिंग इफ फैसिलिटी.
हाँ IFF फैसिलिटी से हम सप्लायर को बता सकते हैं. वी कैन बट देन इफ में क्या होता है सर,
पर क्लेम नहीं कर सकते.
क्लेम नहीं कर पाएंगे ना सर. करेक्ट. इफ में मेरा सप्लायर बता पाएगा लेकिन मैं क्लेम कैसे करूंगा. तो
हाँ, बट एटलीस्ट जो हमको शो करना है उधर भी हमारा रिस्ट्रिक्शन होता था, दैट इज एटलीस्ट इंक्रीज्ड.
हाँ, वो तो सर पहले से हो गया था. वो तो मेरे कस्टमर्स के लिए. विपिन जी का जो क्वेश्चन है वो है जो मेरे सप्लायर से जो आएगा वो मैं क्लेम कैसे करूं. तो ये एक बहुत बड़ी प्रॉब्लम रहने वाली है फॉर द क्वार्टरली टैक्स पेयर. तो इसीलिए एक्चुअली माय इंटरप्रिटेशन इज ये जो 30th नवंबर जब आप टाइम लिमिट दे दिया है और अगर आप देखो सेक्शन 16(4) में द वर्ड उन्होंने जो यूज किया वो एंटाइटलमेंट वर्ड यूज किया है, अवेलमेंट यूज नहीं किया. और सेक्शन 41 में उन्होंने वर्ड अवेलमेंट यूज किया है. और अवेलिंग का मतलब उन्होंने ये भी बताया जब आप इलेक्ट्रॉनिक क्रेडिट लेजर में डालते हो तो उसका मतलब एक हार्मोनियस इंटरप्रिटेशन ये निकल के आ रहा है कि जो क्रेडिट लेने का जो आप सिस्टम है पूरा बुक्स में है. यानी जो 30 नवंबर की जो टाइम है वो मेरे बुक्स में. अगर मैंने बुक्स में अगर टाइम पे ले लिया तो मेरी रिटर्न में मैं कभी भी दिखाऊं बाद में. तो देयर इज अ कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ entitlement of credit and availment of credit. So returns is only a disclosure to avail. अभी इसमें I think there is one judgment of Broadcom पूरा नाम मुझे ध्यान में नहीं आ रहा है बट बॉम्बे ट्रिब्यूनल का जजमेंट है, बॉम्बे और दिल्ली सर्विस टैक्स के केस में, जहां पर उन्होंने बोला है कि there is a difference. Credit must be SANVAT credit must be taken in books, it must be disclosed in ST3 return. तो आई थिंक ये कॉन्सेप्ट एक बहुत बड़ा आगे जाके रहने वाला है. There is a question from Sanmitra, how to tackle to the following issues relating to टू बी में दिखाता नहीं है. जीएसटी 2B में उसको इनएलिजिबल में डाल देता है बास्केट में इफ आई एम करेक्ट. तो आइदर या तो आपके सप्लायर को बोलना चाहिए कि आप सीजीएसटी एसजीएसटी लगाओ या तो फिर वो आईजीएसटी जो है एज इट इज यू टेक द क्रेडिट ऑफ दैट आईजीएसटी. ये आगे जाके लिटिगेशन होगा, इसका कोई ऑप्शन नहीं है बिकॉज वो बकेटिंग जो होती है ना जीएसटी 2B में उसको वो इनएलिजिबल में डाल देता है सिस्टम. अभी ये एक सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम इधर ये है कि पहली बात उस पर सीजीएसटी एसजीएसटी आना चाहिए, आईजीएसटी आना चाहिए, यही क्लियर नहीं है. आप मुझे बोलो ये एक्सपोर्ट कोरियर जो आपने बताया, इंटरमीडियरी जो आपने बताया, फिर ये जो क्रॉस बॉर्डर इंस्टॉलेशन के जो पूरे कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स हैं, इन सभी केसेस में there are 40% of 50% of people who are charging CGST as GST, 50% of people are charging IGST. और consultants भी divided है, कुछ कंसल्टेंट बोलते हैं CGST as GST, कुछ कंसल्टेंट बोलते हैं IGST, 2 या 3 एडवांस फीलिंग्स आई है जो बोलती हैं IGST। तो किसी को नहीं पता है क्या होने वाला है, उसमें बहुत बड़ा लिटिगेशन क्रिएट होने वाला है। और अनफॉर्चुनेट चीज ये है कि अगर आप IGST डालते हो तो पूरा पैसा सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को जाता है, लेकिन अगर आप CGST SGST डालते हो तो पैसा डिवाइड होता है सेंट्रल और स्टेट दोनों के बीच में। तो अगर आप IGST चार्ज कर रहे हो तो प्रैक्टिकली स्टेट गवर्नमेंट को कोई पैसा नहीं मिल रहा है। तो अब डिपेंड करता है कि भाई, अच्छा कुछ ऐसे चीज बहुत स्मार्ट है, वो IGST या CGST डिसाइड करते हैं बेस्ड ऑन मेरा ऑफिसर कौन है। अगर मेरा ऑफिसर स्टेट वाला है तो वो CGST SGST लगाते हैं कि भाई उसको भी मिल जाए, और अगर उनका ऑफिसर सेंटर वाला है तो IGST लगाते हैं कि चल भाई वो क्वेश्चन तो नहीं करेगा। दिस इज सो अनफॉर्चुनेट, बट दिस इज हैपनिंग practically. Next question is, ITC can be claimed if GST 3B September is filed after due date but before? Yes. That is a good part कि अगर आपने समझ लो, बट 10 दिन का टाइम है बेसिकली, 30 नवंबर से 30 नवंबर के बीच में।
Any other questions?
I think no more questions.
So should we go ahead?
Yes, sir, we'll wrap up.
Yeah.
I have already shared PPT with you, which you can share with all the participants.
Yes. Rajendra sir.
Yes. Go ahead with vote of thanks.
So thank you. There is one question, if we can take.
Yeah, there is one question, whether they are going to provide facility of invoice to invoice tax payment. No. कैसे होगा सर? अब देखिए, they may provide, but I'm only thinking, हाँ शायद फिर ऐसे हो सकता है आगे जाकर के भाई इनवॉइस टू इनवॉइस जब GSTR1 फाइल करेगा सप्लायर, तो उसको वो GSTR1 फाइल करने के बाद में नेक्स्ट GSTR फाइल करते टाइम पे पिछले GSTR1 का उसको देना पड़ेगा कि मैंने इसको 3B में डाला क्या और इसका पेमेंट किया क्या। ये फिर एडिशनल काम हो जाएगा सप्लायर का, बट ये हो सकता है। और अगर ये होता है तो मेरे हिसाब से काफी सारी प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व हो सकती है। आइडियली गवर्नमेंट शुड थिंक ऑफ दिस amendment.
So thank you very much, Ravi sir. It was a very informative and very knowledgeable session, and you tried to link it from the history, from the beginning of GST with all the sections, and you were very bold enough and helpful कि किसी को 2A and 3B का मैचिंग नहीं होता है पहले, तो you can and डिपार्टमेंट का नोटिस है तो you can deny that and you can take that credit. And you also went into all the integrities, जो छोटा चीज है, like entitlement to credit, to availment of credit, difference between both the things. So I am really very thankful from Nashik branch for your session. I also like to thank all the participants. They have came from Nashik. They are from Nashik, outside Nashik, for their patient hearing. Thank you very much to everyone. Thank you, Ravi sir.
Thank you all for patient listening, and I would love to come to Nashik next time for the session.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.